and welcome back to things no one cares about, or in this case, things that nobody outside of Japan had an opportunity to care about. I missed you guys. I really did. Also, I moved. Anyways, I'm going to be talking about a tragedy for Layton fans everywhere, and a tragedy for video game fans everywhere. And that is one of the lost Layton games, Professor Layton and the Mansion of the Deathly Mirror. So lost media is like super interesting to me because it seems kind of counterintuitive. On the one hand, we have this like notion about digital media that it's on there forever. Like once you post something on the internet, it's on there forever. And that's true. So like watch what you post. But on the other hand, we now know that like things kind of go missing a lot or get taken down or just disappear. A lot of lost media is around like episodes or movies or things like that that have gotten taken down because of changes in like support of the content. Like people later down the line realize like it's really not great content or like has some like issues with it, so they take it down and now it's lost. So obviously I'm a Layton fan, and most of you guys on my channel are also Layton fans, and we are often in a drought of media. We are suffering. So when I was researching for my big Layton timeline a year or so back, I stumbled upon a bunch of Layton titles or Layton media that I had never heard of, and I got really excited because like, duh, it's like media that I'm interested in but that I haven't yet experienced. And I was also just kind of like confused because again, like how can this media be lost? And lost media is a really broad and honestly kind of presumptuous label for me to be using here. I'm planning on doing like a longer series about the other pieces of Layton lost media, so just for like the sake of my sanity, just to define what I mean when I say lost media, I'm just meaning any piece of Layton media that was not marketed in like Western countries and was not localized in English. So my definition of lost media is like a very Western perspective of it. It's very personal, it's just what's lost to me. So take that as you will. But in that there's like a massive range. On the one hand, you have some novels that are pretty easily accessible and were translated into other languages, I believe, but just not translated into English or not sold in like North America. But they're easily accessible, so there have been like fans who take on this like massive undertaking and have done fan translations of those novels. So those are lost, but not really. There's fairly easy workarounds to that. Then on the other side of the spectrum, we have the lost video games, and the one that I'm going to be talking about in this video, Mansion of the Deathly Mirror. And this is a video game that came out on a specific cell phone that was only sold in Japan. It only came out for like a year and then was re-released, but it was only there for a finite period of time, and we don't really even know much about the plot of these games. So today I'm going to be talking about that game, and I'm going to talk about what we know about the game, why it's lost, and then what I'm really excited about and what's been very like fun about making this video is sort of the meta story here, and that's like the story of the fandom finding the game, or sort of the relationship that the fandom has with this game. It's kind of a video about the game, but about much more than the game. And like I said, I'm going to do videos, I'm pretty sure, on the other pieces of lost media, really anything that doesn't fit into the traditional canon or anything that's Layton media but I left out of my longer timeline, and I'm going to talk about those in other videos. So if that interests you, please consider subscribing. But thank you for watching this video. And let's get into it. I'm really so excited for this video. I've had so much fun planning this video. So I talked a bit about how lost media is a vast and complex range, and lost video games is much the same. A lost video game can look like many things. Games can be lost during pre-production or during development, and so they can just be scrapped or not released. This was the case with Star Fox 2, which was a game that was developed in 1995, but was dropped before it was released. This game was found when Nintendo released the game as a bonus for the Super NES Classic Edition in 2017, and then it was re-released on Nintendo Switch Online in 2019. Some lost video games aren't whole games at all, but rather scrapped additions or scrapped like add-ons, I guess, to the game. So this was the case with Super Mario 64. 2020 Gig Leak of Nintendo data showed that Super Mario 64 was originally intended to have a multiplayer mode where a secondary player could play as Luigi, and fans still search for other sort of like lost data from existing games. Other lost video games fall under this category of abandonware, and abandonware is software that is no longer supported or manufactured by the original manufacturer. So there's not really an explicitly legal way to download or access the game if you don't already have it. And I say explicitly legal because abandonware is a bit of a gray area when it comes to a copyright law, and while accessing abandonware is legal, so it's like legal to access it, but it's not really legal to like, it's not necessarily legal to reproduce it and sell it. That's a whole different area. And also you get into this legal grayness when you talk about what counts as abandonware. So a lot of digitally downloaded games and mobile games fall into this category of abandonware. So when they took Flappy Bird off of the App Store, Flappy Bird then could have been argued to count as abandonware because if you still had the game on your phone or on an iPod Touch or whatever, you would not be able to get support for it, and there would be no other way for anybody to download it. So a great example of abandonware and sort of like legal issues with abandonware was with Club Penguin Rewritten, which is a fan-made recreation of the beloved Disney web game Club Penguin, and Disney shut down Club Penguin Rewritten. But the owners of that page, Club Penguin Rewritten, they voluntarily shut it down at the request of Disney, at like a takedown request. Okay, so I'm editing, and actually 3 people were arrested over the Club Penguin Rewritten.
And you're going to jail.
Although it seems like, I don't know, it seems like a lot more of a complicated situation than just having to do with video game like emulation or recreation, and they had been asked to close it down like another time and then they just migrated to a different site. So I don't know, not great example. But yeah, the other thing with that is that they made money off of like in-game advertising, which I think also played into Disney actually wanting to like pursue them. So definitely like you can get arrested for these things, but I do think that this situation was like a little bit more complicated than just like video game recreation or like whatnot. So just thought I'd add that note. So the point here is just that lost media and lost media recreation and archival and lost video games is a very legally tangled and gray area, and this will come up later in this video. There are a lot of different lost video games, and there's equally a lot of different ways to go about finding them. So in the case of Star Fox 2, finding the game just sort of meant begging Nintendo to release the game, and that could work if a game is lost because it's just unreleased. But sometimes finding a game could also just be learning about plot details or gameplay. So for the Super Mario 64 example, as far as I know, there isn't a found version of the game where you can play multiplayer. It's just that they found data and found sort of back-end things to indicate that was part of the game. And finally, with Club Penguin, fans recreated the game with Club Penguin Rewritten, and the lost game was then recreated and distributed so that it could be played as it originally was. So for this video, those are the 3 main ways of finding lost video games. 1, getting an original copy somehow. 2, finding data and using it to learn about the game and details of the game. And 3, using game data to recreate a playable version of the game. But anyways, let's get into what we know about the game. So let's look at the Professor Layton wiki page and see what we can see. So Professor Layton and the Mansion of the Deathly Mirror is a Japanese cell phone game in the Professor Layton series, and it's set somewhere between the events of Diabolical Box and Unwound Future, so that's pretty important. We can scroll down, we see that it was released on cell phone, Roid cell phone, released October 10th, 2008, and re-released November 1st, 2012. And let's see what we can find out about the plot. Professor Layton receives a letter about a mysterious manor that contains a mirror which is said to cause death upon anyone who dares to look into it. The professor and his apprentice Luke Triton set out to investigate this interesting case. Gameplay is similar to games released on Nintendo DS, Pick Rats, hints, blah, blah, blah. Re-release. We got these 5 pictures, and that's it. So here we have another plot from the Lost Media Wiki page. The plot of the game focuses on the titular Professor Layton and his apprentice Luke Triton being called into the unveiling of a so-called Deathly Mirror, which is supposed to let you speak to the deceased. Upon arriving, the 2 find that Inspector Chelmy, another recurring character from the series, is also in attendance. The host butler, Randy, introduces himself and brings the duo to a dining room where they meet other guests. Murdoch, the host of the unveiling, comes in and introduces himself. As the mirror is unveiled, Felden, an attendant, questions its validity and mocks Murdoch. Shortly after, Felden's grandmother appears in the mirror. Later that night, Murdoch is killed in front of the mirror, and it's up to the professor and Luke to uncover the truth behind the mirror. That's it. That's all we know. So thank you guys. Keep an eye out for my next videos, and have a great day. Obviously, like, just kidding, but that is all we concretely know about the game, and that's like a pretty important thing to note because for the rest of the section, anything I'm saying is sort of based off of things I can't confirm, which is like rumors or things I've heard. That being said, I still have a fair bit of confidence that the things I'm going to present beyond that wiki page they have, like, I would say, like, a 60, 70, 80% chance of being accurate. But I just can't, like, we can't confirm it. So just a little note about that. So I got a little bit more information about the plot from a person in the fandom who I talked to a fair bit and was very helpful, named Jonas. And I'll be mentioning them a lot in this video. And again, they were just, like, really helpful, so thank you, Jonas. And they're also the author of that Lost Wiki page, so, like, thank you. At one point, though, when Jonas was researching the game, they talked to somebody who owned and played the game, and that person described the plot of the game. So here is plot version number 1. According to them, a rich man named Murdoch accidentally kills his butler's daughter. Butler's named Randy, daughter named Jennifer, so it's Randy's daughter Jennifer. The butler seemingly let go of his anger and forgives the rich man. Murdoch invites a bunch of rich people, including Layton and Luke, to present a spooky old mirror that he's auctioning off. The mirror is rumored to summon and reflect the image of a dead individual. The mirror glows eerily, and then the lights go out. When the lights turn back on, the rich man is dead. The ensuing events are what I can only imagine are a cosmically satisfying whodunit dinner party mystery in which Layton deduces who indeed had done it. Layton turns and points at the culprit. The butler did it. He was using the mirror's legend as a scapegoat so that he could kill the people he blamed for his daughter's death. Unfortunately, though, Jonas sort of talked about how this plot contradicts things that we are fairly certain happen in the game. So this plot is, I mean, it's a thing, but it's not the plot that I think makes the most sense based off of, like, other plots that I heard. So here is plot version number 2. Rich man Murdoch has a daughter named Jennifer who tragically died in some sort of dare that somehow involved the other guests. Murdoch does not actually die, but rather stages his auction and fakes his own death as an orchestration of some grand plot to get back at all the guests for his daughter's death. At some point, Luke gets stabbed in the shoulder and Layton almost pistol whips the butler. But neither plot really explains why Layton, Luke, and also Inspector Chalmers are there. Here's what I personally think the plot is. Layton and Luke arrive at the mansion for the unveiling of the supposed deathly mirror. Upon arriving, the two see Inspector Chalmers and they meet the host, Murdoch, the butler Randy, and the other guests in attendance, one of whom is named Felden. Murdoch unveils the mirror while Felden makes fun of him and says, "I don't know, this seems stupid." Shortly after, Felden's grandmother appears in the mirror. Later that night, Murdoch is killed in front of the mirror. Layton and Luke take part in what I can only imagine is a cosmically satisfying whodunit dinner party mystery in which Luke gets stabbed in the shoulder, Layton almost pistol whips the butler. This scene happens, Layton deduces who indeed had done it. Layton turns and points at the culprit, Murdoch. He had faked his own death and staged the auction to get back at the guests who were somehow responsible for his daughter's death. And I was also able to see some pictures from the game thanks to another person I talked to in the fandom named Corn. So thank you so much, Corn, for all these pictures and for talking to me. Very helpful. I will link Corn's YouTube channel, so check that out if you're into animation, into Ace Attorney, Layton, or similar games. So let's get into those pictures. So this picture is from the World of Professor Layton book, and it tells a little bit about the plot, just a little bit though, and it has a couple pictures, some information about the release date. This picture is also from the World of Professor Layton, and here we can see the three characters, Murdoch, Felden, and Randy. Again, it gives a little bit more about the plot, and at the bottom it tells us a little bit more about the re-release of the game in 2012. Here's just zooming in on one page. Here's a picture of the actual Royd cell phone gameplay menu when you first open up the game. We have some more pictures of the Royd, so that's Layton and Randy. We have Layton and Chalmers talking. This appears to be a picture of a puzzle. I don't speak Japanese, so I don't know what the puzzle's about. We have this picture of Layton and Luke arriving at the mansion. Very cute. Another picture of Layton and Randy. Layton and another suspect. I don't know what her name is. Layton and Murdoch. As you can see, the game is, like, in Japanese, which presents a specific obstacle for non-Japanese speaking people who are looking for the game. Side note, if you speak Japanese and out of the goodness of your heart would like to help translate these, let me know. So on first glance, it's obvious why the game is lost, because it came out on a specific cell phone that was only sold in Japan, only in a few years, and, you know, people didn't really record Let's Plays or things like that, and, you know, now the games are lost because the phones are lost, so, like, that's why. But also, like, obviously that's not the case. We have pictures of the game. Jonas has talked to somebody who has played the game, and I myself even watched a partial playthrough of the game, which I'm not going to share here for reasons I will get into later. But my point is just that, like, the game exists. It's still on this earth. We know this. So why is it lost? Well, the answer is that it's low-key not lost at all. Because people who have looked for the game and who are continuing to look for the game know many places where it definitely is. So again, why is it lost? Well, when I asked Jonas what was the hardest part of looking for the game, they said, well, everyone who owns the game is allergic to people asking about the game to insane degrees. And that really just seemed like the perfect way to phrase what I saw in my brief time of looking for the game. This was sort of a sentiment that was echoed in basically every single person I talked to about, you know, how they went about finding the game. So what is the cause and effect of this allergy? And you will indulge me as I run this metaphor into the ground. Copyright. So copyright is a big thorn in the side of anyone looking into lost media. If you've watched any videos about lost media and sort of the efforts to sort of like republish that, I'm sure you've heard about it. And copyright concerns come up most often when the method of saving a game or saving a piece of media involves sharing files or republishing it. So some Deathly Mirror folks are looking to save the game by grabbing the files from a phone and dumping them onto a computer and literally sharing them so that people who know what they're doing can rework them into a playable ROM that would work on an emulator. In other lost media situations, folks oftentimes talk about not wanting to share the files because they don't want to risk having any of their channels being shut down, which is a valid concern, but copyright law works differently in different countries. But in the US, the first course of action is basically just getting issued a takedown notice. Unless you like repeatedly sort of break copyright, you're not really going to see more of that. In the cases of somebody trying to get game files and like put them to an archive or something, or just have them and like share them kind of like secretly a little bit, you're probably not going to even draw the attention of like companies noticing. And if you do, like, you will get a takedown notice for the files. So like on YouTube, if I were to post something that breaks copyright laws, I would get a copyright or DMCA takedown notice, and they would just take down my video. I maybe would get a strike on my channel, but my channel would not get taken down. I probably wouldn't even get a strike on my channel. It would just be the video that gets taken down. And I'll include some links about copyright emulators and ROMs and like sort of the gray area with that, because that could be like a whole other video, and there are like tons of great videos on that. But this is not legal advice though, and I'm certainly not telling anybody to break the law. But copyright concerns only have to do with dumping files and distributing files, but copyright certainly does not make sense as the cause for many of these allergic reactions of people not wanting to even talk about the game. I also asked Corny for her medical opinion on this allergy epidemic, and she brought up a good point that dumping the files can sometimes risk the files themselves or risk the phone that they're on, so you could risk bricking the phone and corrupting the data and basically losing the files altogether, which, again, I have no idea like how likely that is. I really don't know, but like that totally makes sense. That sounds like really scary, and that would be really sad if we finally found like a holy grail of the phone with the game and then like that happened. So that makes sense. Another potential cause is cultural differences, and this is in like a few different ways. So there was one person who came up several times in the search, and this person is a Japanese streamer, and she uploaded several Let's Play videos a long time ago, but stopped before completing the game. And she uploaded another video recently, but then stopped uploading and actually tweeted about this and kind of said that like she was very like nervous about playing this game again because she got DMs from shady foreigners. And some of the people who have been looking for the game who I talked to about this, they are obviously very interested in this Let's Play series, and very sad when this Let's Player stopped uploading. Very excited to see that she uploaded another one, and then when they saw this tweet, they sort of talked about how they think that these shady foreigners actually were them, you know, showing interest because they've been trying to find the game. So, I mean, that's not funny because, like, it sucks that she stopped uploading, but it is like, there's sort of like an interesting ecosystem here. And while I wish that this Let's Player would be more open to like people interacting and people like enjoying these uploads, it's clear that they like don't seem to like that, so that's why I'm not gonna like name the person or include the videos here. And when I talked to Jonas, they were one person I talked about the streamer with, and they thought that the streamer might be wary for a few reasons. One, just in general, being a woman online, you tend to get like weird comments. You tend to just be like a little bit more on guard about who's in your DMs and who's messaging you, which makes sense. Two, being a Japanese woman online might have something to do with it, and this is in relation to the treatment of Japanese women, especially online. That would make sense. Again, it seems like that would explain some of this wariness. And three, being Japanese, and this is in relation to a broader wariness of foreigners and Westerners and sort of being approached in English, which again would make sense because her tweet mentioned shady foreigners, and I'm assuming that she was able to like identify these people like as not Japanese because they were likely approaching her in English, especially if it was people in these like groups that I talked to who were looking for the game. So that kind of makes sense. And that last part also fits in with other incidents, because another way that people go about trying to find the game is just trying to buy a cell phone with the game on it for themselves. And I saw this like method being talked about a lot. And a lot of people talked about searching up the cell phone model on specific Japanese reselling websites and either buying them like kind of at random and hoping the game's on it, or looking out for versions of this game that, or versions of the phone that had Layton backgrounds, because the Royd cell phone service, you would have access to like specific backgrounds. And these are some examples of this. So once you had a Royd phone and you had a subscription service, you would get some of these backgrounds, and they're just really cute. So we have this one, my personal favorite from Diabolical Box, because I love my boy Anton. Another one with my boy Anton here, but this has got like sort of all the villains. Then we have this Halloween one that's super cute, the Masked Gentleman from Miracle Mask. We have this other one with older Luke and the little animals from that game. Lord forgive me, I'm forgetting the bunny's name. Then this one of Flora looking sad, probably because she's been left out of every game imaginable. Thank you again, Corn. And my first question was like, okay, well, can't you just ask the sellers like, hey, is this game on the phone? Because that's actually what I'm looking to buy, and you could just save your time and money that way. And the people that I talked to basically answered with like a resounding like, no, you cannot do that. And I talked to one person who's more broadly interested in video game preservation, and they purchased a lot of these phones looking for both this game and another game that's like a higher priority for them. Like, he kind of said that essentially people who own the game do not want to talk about the game for some odd reason. And this person specified that it has nothing to do with when you ask or how you ask. They just feel uncomfortable even talking about it or helping. They also said, now of course you can ask the person on auction websites if the phone has it, but the seller then remembers to delete it even if you ask not to. Which is like, at this point I was like, what is this? What is this game? Like, what is this, like another angle of the JFK assassination? Like, why don't people want you, like they don't even want to talk about it? Which is very intriguing to me, and I think very interesting and frustrating to a lot of people who look for this game. He did say that there have been a few people willing to help, but that a majority just find an excuse to not help, which again is just like, seems like a perfect phrasing for like the other conversations or other like forums that I read and stuff like that, because it seemed like people gave a lot of explanations for why they couldn't help or why they couldn't talk about it, but none of them really made sense. And I'm not trying to accuse anybody of like lying or anything like that. I'm not these people. I don't know what their rationale was, but it is just like, it's something that's very hard for me to understand. But again, I'm also aware of the fact that like I'm not them and I don't know what other factors might be like leading them to do that. So I mean, I'm talking about some of them here, but I really, I'm not gonna say, I can't say at the end of the day like why people don't want to talk about it. This does kind of seem like a cultural difference thing, or maybe a legal difference thing in terms of like what the laws are in Japan versus in the US or maybe even in the UK, because this specific conversation was in the context of game preservation. And this person that I talked to also mentioned in another conversation that Japanese anti-game preservation is very strange. By the way, all the sellers of these phones that people were talking to and like, having the other party just kind of like disappear or like delete their comment, these were all Japanese sellers. So it would make sense that there's something either cultural or like legal or some reason why people who own this game or know about the game in Japan like are more wary about talking about it, especially if this applies to other games, which it seems like this applies to other games that are sold in Japan on like similar cell phone services. Or maybe there's no connection. I don't know. That's all I got. That's my best answer here. Sort of possible and more depressing explanation would be like exclusivity. I asked in this conversation when I talked to Corn about like why they think nobody wants to like talk about the game. She kind of mentioned feeling that maybe some people felt special having the game or knowing something about the game given that nobody else has it, and that they did not want to lose that exclusivity. So just sort of like textbook gatekeeping, and that's really sad. But again, it's one of those things, like I feel like that probably plays some part. So. Sort of case or rationale is one that I don't really know what to do with, but it was an interesting story that I just wanted to mention. So Jonas also talked to me about another person that they talked to who had the game, and this is the person who shared the plot details, plot version number 1. But this was like a really, really bare bones explanation of the plot, and like I mentioned, some of the key points don't fit in with the plot. Like, the plot details that I hear and that other people, like everybody else talks about. So like, I don't know why these details are different. Like maybe they actually are right and like I'm completely wrong and that actually is the plot. Or I don't know, maybe they genuinely like misunderstood the game. I have no idea. Like I said, I don't really know what to do with this example. I don't know if they're lying for whatever reason. I really just don't know what to make of it. And also after they talked to Jonas, they sort of just like fell off the internet a little bit and stopped responding, which again could be for like a billion different reasons that have nothing to do with this game. So I don't really know what to make of that example, but I did think it was interesting. So again, I just sort of want to reiterate that I don't know people's rationale for not wanting to share the game or even talk about it, but I think that this is a pretty decent list of possible causes for this alleged allergy. And personally, I think that it's a combination of a lot of these, depending on the situation. So now what? Like literally nobody wants to talk about the game. You found the game. You know a fair few people who have the game, but literally nobody wants to talk about it or share it. So what do? You know, there's a lot of people looking for the game and they all have different approaches. So some of them are to keep looking for posts or blogs where people talk about playing the game, maybe just to learn more about the game and sort of reconstruct a secondhand document about the game. 2, look for assets of the game and some data online that you could use to like make a reconstruction of the game. Again, not sure what like that would mean for like the data part, but for the assets, some of that looks like just finding pictures of it, sort of just making like a database of all the literal assets in the game. Or 3, like I've mentioned, look to buy used Droid phones in the hopes that they have the game on it. But even this last option would pose issues if you were able to get your hands on a copy of the game, because as one person explained to me, you would only be getting partial data. So I'm going to read this part just like straight off the screen. Because as I understand it, Layton games use Docomo, which has its own Java code called Doja, and that was used to make applications for Docomo phones. But because of the limited ability of like Doja and like storage ability of, I think, the phone, the game would basically be programmed to download files, delete files, and then download them again. And that would give the full game experience, but you would not have the full game data on your phone at a time. So most likely any phone with the game would be 100% playable, but would not have 100% of the data or of the game files. And the remaining game files would have to be downloaded from a server that no longer exists. You could extract the server URL from the data, but you would likely find that you still probably wouldn't be able to find that server. So you would probably just have like a partial game, which would still be like way better than nothing. But sort of like the issue is just like, again, as somebody who knows like nothing about all of this, I'm like, well, I don't know how you solve that. Like, is that even solvable? Like, I don't know. That sounds pretty bad. So there's no like real way around it. Like, up until this point, like, this video has kind of been a major bummer because it's like, I'm like, yeah, there's a Layton game out there, but we don't know anything about it, and we'll probably never know. Well, that's not true. I'm more of an optimist of that. But, like, you know, it's hard to learn more about it, and most fans will never see the game. And so you might be like, why the hell was she excited to talk about this video? Because this is, like, depressing. I wish I could sit here and be like, we found the game! Like, they found it! That's so cool! But no, I don't have that good news. But there was something really cool that I learned in the course of making this video, and that is that the people in this fandom do really, really cool things and are really interested in the things that they do. The potential for what they create is like endless, whereas like this is one Layton game. And as much as I would love to see that Layton game, it is a lot cooler to see that like people are working on projects that to me are like endlessly exciting. So I'm sort of talking in circles, but basically I'll get into that. So there's this whole group of people who are massively talented, who spend a lot of time and have spent a lot of time looking for this game, and some are more general video game conservationists. Some of them are like Layton fans who just want more content. But they all, in some way or another, were interested in finding these games. But one of these people, Jonas, who looks for the game because they, like, want more Layton content, they started another project out of this, like, you know, yearning for more Layton content, and that is Team Top Hat. And Team Top Hat is a team consisting of artists, musicians, hackers and like coders, story writers, and they are working on a program to hack Layton games, which, as I understand it, is basically accessing like the ROM files of like the main Layton games, you know, the mainstream existing ones, not the lost ones, and hacking those files and basically making so that you can rewrite the assets, and they're sort of hacking these ROMs so that their musicians and artists and story writers can rewrite them and create an original Layton game, which is like so cool. Like, that's so, again, I know I keep saying that like I don't understand technology, but like to me that's like magic. Like, that's so cool. And their title for the game is called Thespian's Curse. And they've been working on this game for 3 years now, and they've done a lot of like really impressive work, and I will link their Discord server below if that interests you, and you can also look them up on YouTube and see some of the work that they like produced over the years. Like, they have like an original soundtrack. It's just so cool because it's like, it's so Layton-esque. I don't know, it's so cool. Another project that they've been working on is with Mansion of the Deathly Mirror, redrawing images and those assets so that they are like better quality, because the pictures that we have come from this like old ass cell phone, so like obviously the quality like isn't that great, so they redraw them sort of like HD quality. And again, I will link Team Top Hat's public Discord server below. If that sounds like anything that project is in your wheelhouse, definitely check it out. The whole process of making this video was really just such a fun ride. I've been working on this for like, I don't know, like 3-4 months, planning this for a while, and it just came with like so many ups and downs. Like, first, the excitement when I first was researching, like way back when for my timeline video, the excitement of being like, oh my god, there's other Layton content that I like haven't enjoyed yet. Then the disappointment of learning that like I can't actually enjoy it. The confusion as I learned more about like the frustrating aspects of the search of like, these people just won't talk to you, which like is baffling. And then there was also just like the really like just the sheer awe of seeing this community of people who are like doing something that's so, that requires so much talent and is just like requires such dedication, and they're just doing it because they love Layton and they like love the action of like creating this game. I imagine like they like the process as well as like the end product. I've been a Layton fan for over a decade, and this channel has like allowed me to be a part of the like online Layton community in a way that just wasn't possible when I first played these games over a decade ago. Like, I'm 23 years old and I played these games like when they first came out, and they meant a lot to me when I first played them. And you know, I played them as like more games came out, and they got me through some like tough times in like middle school and high school, and then again during like the height of like COVID isolation, I replayed them and they got me through a lot. Then making that video, like, that was a really, like, I mean, it's silly, but like that was a really important project to me and like something that I feel massively proud of. And so to be able to like talk to other people like through my comment section and stuff about the games and like really enjoy that has already been like so rewarding. But this video and like the process of like researching for this video just introduced me to like another part of the community, and I just really am so thankful for like that. I don't know, it sounds so corny, but again, these games got me through like a lot of rough times, and there's something really beautiful about talking to people who are a lot younger than me who only discovered these games like a few years ago, five years ago, I guess that's not really a few, but who like discovered it long after they first came out, and that like seeing that these games got them through similar things. It's like, it's just very cool and very, again, being corny, but very beautiful that like media like has that power. And I really enjoyed making this video for that reason. So yeah, I just really love this community so much. So thank you guys for watching this video. Thank you to the people who like answered my questions. Even when it was like, I felt bad for like, I felt like I was like low-key interrogating some of you. So thank you for putting up with that, especially Jonas and Corn. Thank you guys so much. And thank you again if you watch this video or you watch any of my other videos. Thank you so much. I check my YouTube channel like every single day just because I love reading your comments. I love responding to your comments. I just love like talking to you guys. And I'd love to hear what you guys think about this video or just about the Mansion of the Deathly Mirror game. If you have any thoughts about it, if you have any like expertise about like video game preservation, or if there are also any other like lost media things that seem interesting, please let me know. I think this video also got me interested in like some other video types of videos I could do that are like not specifically Layton related. So yeah, just like let me know. I love talking to you guys. Also, you can follow my Twitter account. I'm gonna try to be more active on there, posting like about my video stuff, and I eventually want that to be like more interactive, so that I can like, I don't know, get guys feedback as I'm making a video or like do polls or stuff like that. So check that out. Thank you. I really love this channel. So thanks guys. Bye.